today. We are getting started to have a town hall meeting with the mayors and pro tem. They will tell you this afternoon how their cities got involved with energy. They will talk about the challenges that they faced in the energy space, utility space. These are rural town. Well, I wouldn't say rural. Now, I grew up in Lynette, Alabama, right? So Mayor Hurd and Mayor Riley, Cedar Valley, sister cities here. We have gone back some years. Yes, we have. Mayor Riley was the superintendent of Chambers County Schools before he became mayor. And my mother taught there. He was sure, was it what, 12 years? That's right. Of course, Mayor Hurd was a successor to my father serving as mayor of the city of Lynette. And this is a special time and heart-wrenching, heartwarming time for me to be here to moderate this panel, simply because my father, when he was mayor, 11 years and three months, I think it was, he passed away in office. But he cared deeply about the energy burden that the citizens of Lynette suffered. Oftentimes, when I would visit him, around the first or the end of the month, he would have these phone calls come in. And the phone calls would be from the citizens of Lynette. And oftentimes they would ask the question, Oscar, could you please not turn my power off? We just don't have the money. And that was something that he didn't do. He never turned it off, right? So I am so grateful that Solar for All has found Lynette and the City Valley. And I thank you, Mayor Hurd, for your effort in pulling together municipalities and EMCs across the state of Alabama, as well as West Georgia as well. So thank you for your service in that. So we'll get started. I'd like for each of you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your community and how you got involved with energy, renewable energy, particularly solar for all. Okay, start, Mayor Hurd.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Hurd. As Deidre said, I'm from Lynette, Alabama. She mentioned that her father was the mayor of Lynette. We went in office at the same time. He ran for mayor and I ran for the city council. So we spent 11 years together. Lynette is a small area. We have about a population about 6,500. As Deidre said, we have quite a few elderly people whose income is not the best. And as she stated that her dad would get calls every month about, please don't turn my power off. I get those same calls today. I get them twice a month. We cut off twice a month. We have 2 different cycles. And of course, I get those calls. And like her dad, I can't cut them off either, especially when they tell you that they are old or they have small kids in the house. It's a tough decision. And I do whatever I have to do to help them. I serve on the Community Action Board. And of course, that's an organization that helps with utility and rent. And by serving on that board, I'm able to get some of them help. I have gotten up to $1,800 for a family to just cover for a month. So, and how we got started, Mr. Leon Child, Leon, where are you? Leon called me up one day and was talking about groundswell and solar and all. And he mentioned Deidre, and said that they wanted to come and talk with me about it. So we met, and of course, Michelle, we talked with her, and she came down, I think, a couple of times, and we met. And I was real impressed with the presentation that they presented. Even my council, because I had Leon and Deidre to come present the information to the council, and they were in agreement that we should proceed with it. And once I got involved, I thought about my friend, Mr. Riley. And of course, Mr. Riley used to be my boss years ago. He was the superintendent. And at that time, I was in the classroom. So we've always had a good relationship. And of course, not only did I introduce Mr. Riley, I introduced the mayor from Lafayette, and I introduced them, gave them information to the mayor in Tuskegee. So trying to get everybody involved, because I feel like it's a great project. Feel like Brownswell is an organization that cares. And Lynette has some solar already. I think they were panels that were implemented when her dad was the mayor. So, yes, Lynette is on board. We look forward to working with Brownswell and other organizations, because we have a whole lot of elderly people that just can't afford to have repairs done to their houses. We got people in our area, Social Security check less than $900 a month. So when you're trying to pay bills, buy food, and medication, it doesn't take long to get rid of it. And if we can get these houses up to date and get these solar panels and all, it would be a benefit for all. I don't want to take up too much of the time, because Mr. Riley and I, we rode up here together, and I don't want him to fuss at me on the way back, saying I didn't give him a chance to talk. So turn it over to Mr. Riley.
I took over a school system that was belly up and had to lay off a lot of people on the first day and close a lot of schools. Pretty much had to do the same thing when I became mayor of the city of Valley. The city of Valley is a small community, got about 10,300 people. It's on the Georgia line. You know, we're the last two exits coming out of Alabama going to Atlanta, exit 77 and exit 79. But we have a lot of potential. But our city council and our mayor previously only cared about historical stuff. So they spent all their money on historical stuff. When I took over as mayor, I didn't have enough money to meet payroll the first 2 weeks, and I owed $300,000. Today, I got $17 million in the bank and own 1,600 acres. But we have a lot of senior citizens in our community, a lot of senior citizens, and we have torn down a lot of houses, have just gone downhill. And we want our city to look good. We want our property values to be good. We don't have a property tax. We have a sales tax, and it has grown from $5 million to almost $11 million in the last 6 or 7 years. We're business oriented. We take care of our citizens. We have a lot of senior citizens who, like Jamie said, only $800 or $900 in Social Security. By the time you pay your power bill and your grocery bill and your medicine, there's no money left. And the reason we're in this program, we want to help our seniors. Now, we're doing a lot of things in our community to help everybody. But after I learned that this would help our seniors, I was all for it. And that's the reason I'm here. I want to help our seniors. I'm a senior. But we were an old textile community. West Point Stevens was located in West Point, Georgia. West Point, Georgia, Lynette, and Valley. We had 5 mills in our community. In the early 90s, they started closing. In the year, we had about 15,000 jobs in the early 80s, textile. And then in 08, 07, 08, when they closed the last mills, there were no jobs. And we went up to 22% unemployment, folks. When I was school superintendent, lost a lot of money. And we had to find ways to survive. We had to find ways for our community to survive. A lot of our people moved. A lot of our people went out of the community to work. They had to. They didn't have a choice. And we're not far from Auburn, Opelika, which are good-sized communities in LaGrange, Georgia. So they found jobs and doing pretty good. But I had a Korean guy to come to my office about my 3rd month. And Kia located about 4 miles from the city of Valley in West Point. So we started getting suppliers. The Southern Industrial Park did, the city of Valley didn't. But we didn't own any land. And that Korean guy looked at me, and he was Glovis. And he said, we were renting a facility out here, and we want to build a facility in your community. Do you have any land that we can use? And I looked at him and I said, we don't have any land and we don't have any money. And that's it with me. And I still remember that day. I still remember his voice. I still remember his face. And I said then, we were not going to be in this situation any longer. So we started looking for land touching the city of Valley that we could buy. And West Point Stevens owned 417 acres right out there on the interstate. And then Combs' property, and Jack Combs wouldn't sell nothing, but he passed. And I touched base with his wife and then the Bernie property. But I had to deal with a New York real estate lady on the West Point Stevens property. And we made a deal one night and she got fired the next day. So I had to start dealing with a New York lawyer. And folks, I'm a Southern guy. And I struggle with that New York lawyer. But we made a deal, and we bought that property sitting on the edge of the interstate. Then we moved on down to the Combs property, and I requested to have lunch with her. And her husband wouldn't sell you nothing, I can just tell you. But I sat down on the table and I said, I have had your land appraised by a commercial appraiser. And this is what I will offer you for your land. And this is the value of your land. She said, that's not what I thought it was worth. I said, that's what a commercial appraiser in Auburn came and did. So she got back with me in 2 weeks. We bought it. We bought the West Point Stevens property. And all of this was outside the city. And then we had the Bernie property, 317 acres. And I offered him less than what he thought it was worth. Everybody thinks their land's worth a lot. I do too. But I made him an offer, and I told him, this is what I'll give you, and I'll give you cash. And I had to go to the bond market, folks. I didn't have any money. And I understand the bond market better than most anybody does. I understand finance probably better than anybody does. I was able to borrow about $15 million, all less than 2.5%. I've got one bond issue, it's 2.67, and I'll never pay them off because we won't see that rate for a while. But we have come a long ways. We got $17 million in the bank, but we still have a lot of senior citizens who live in homes that they need some low interest money to make their home livable. And we have a lot of landowners rental property. We've got 3,200 trash accounts. 1,100 of them are rental. So we're wanting to make our community so much better, and we want to make it good for our seniors. We don't own our utilities like Jamie does. We're at the mercy of Alabama Power and Alabama Gas, and so we have to work with them, and then we have to work and try to help our seniors as much as we can. We can't use our taxpayer money to do work on home care. You know that. So we're here to make our seniors' life so much better, and that's the reason we're part of this. This time, I'm going to turn it over to our next gentleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is J.C. Sebastian. I'm Mayor Pro Tem of the City of South Fulton. And for those of you who have not heard of us before, we're a little sleeping giant on the southwest side of Atlanta. We are the second largest city in Fulton County, behind the city of Atlanta. We're a little less than 8 years old. We had the opportunity to form a city of 115,000 people as of the 2022 Census Media estimates back in 2017. And I know everyone thinks their city is special, so I'm going to tell you how special mine is. We were a large area that was made up of the unincorporated areas of southern Fulton County. And we basically formed the city because we weren't getting the services. Our tax dollars were not being spent where they were taken from. And so if you guys hear from my accent, I'm from further south in Georgia. I'm originally from the Caribbean, from Antigua to be specific. So as an adopted American, I always say taxation without representation is un-American. And so therefore we went to work, and it took us a little bit of a try, but we managed to get the referendum passed back in 2017. And talk about money and finances. Our last budget on the Fulton County, this Fulton County was running sort of like an unincorporated city. And our last budget on the Fulton County was $55 million. And those of us who were advocates for the city kept saying there's much more money here than that. Well, we just approved, in just a mere 7 years, we just approved our 8th budget for $255 million. So in 7 years, we've added $200 million to our budget. Okay, and that has come even on top of us rolling back our millage rate in 2023. So for us, we know we have money at home to take care of the business that we need to take care of. But how did I get here? How did I end up in this room today? By the way, guys, my pastor is here, and it's his birthday. Dr. Reverend Early, can you stand? Let the people see you. We're not going to sing you happy birthday, but we're going to wish you happy birthday. Right? So how did I get here? Well, back in the day when I had here, I worked on this project for the United Nations Environment Program. And it was climate change impact and adaptation assessment. Adaptation assessment was the old word for resilience, right? And so for me, back in the day as a young researcher, I had a chance to look at data. I had a chance to do scenarios about sea level rise and temperature rise and the impact that will have on our planet. Well, fast forward many years later, didn't expect to become an elected official, but that's another story. But fast forward all these years later, serving at the community church, where I just introduced my pastor, we got approached about 2 years ago to do this resiliency hub at our community center. And so for me, getting involved with that project was really a godsend, because it has opened up my eyes even further, not on the side of the impacts, but on the side of the assessment. And so the things that I begin to talk to my own city about is, how do we make our entire city? What are the things that we have to implement in our policies? I already had these conversations with our mayor, and I introduced Michelle to our city manager. because we want to do everything that we're doing going forward. One of the benefits of being a young city is that you kind of get to do stuff now the way that you want to do them, right? So we're talking about things like, do we need to adjust our building codes? We're doing a comprehensive plan review on a zoning ordinance update, and we're talking about what is flooding like now. Do we need to curtail building, because there's a lot of building happening in our city? Do we need to curtail building in certain areas that are close to our rivers and waterway? And if we do allow the building, what does that look like? When we have to do land disturbances, how are we going to make sure when we disturb the land that the natural drainage and flooding don't happen? So again, we are really looking at things in a comprehensive way to build resilience in our community, because something like changing our building codes and reviewing those, because it's not a matter of if we're going to get a hurricane up here in Georgia that's going to be devastating, category 2 or 3. It's just a matter of when, because we have seen them, especially this year, coming out of the Gulf with all this fury. So we have to be ready. Not only my city, but every city in Florida and Georgia around here need to be ready for when those level of storms come. So we want to work with our community to establish some of these resiliency centers similar to Vickers. We've been starting to, reach out into the community to try to identify some. Our city already has a one particular of our parks building that we turn into somewhat of a little shelter at times when it gets too cold or too warm. So we're trying to see how we can build the resiliency piece in so that it can exist off of the grid for a while. We also happen to have, of all the cities that abuts Metro Atlanta, we also happen to have a lot of open land, probably the most developable land in the Metro Atlanta region, which means we also have space for some solar farms, right? We're having a lot of discussion now around our city because, especially in the area where I was elected, I have the largest geographic district, most populated, but our density is low. We have a lot of land. So we are talking about preservation of that land. And our citizens and myself, I don't like to hear when we have projects that come forward that's going to pour a lot of concrete on the ground, right? So it means that we can do clean things like solar farms, and we're actually pushing to develop some farms that were there before to redevelop those areas. But in making the options available for clean energy is going to give us sort of the opportunity to have those things done in a sustainable way. We also have an award-winning workforce development program that's run out of our parks department for our midnight basketball program. And we are currently training folks in that program to be electricians, HVACs, right? And what I've already spoken to the parks director is to look at the program so we can include solar technicians into that program. So this is something that we're going to be trying to push. And I know we are not only talking about this from a city's perspective, but also where I serve in ministry at the Vickers Community Center. We're talking about developing a whole workforce development program around solar and other sort of clean and environmentally friendly initiatives that we are looking at. We know, my pastor frequently says we're not a mega church, but we do mega ministry. And I'm hoping I'm stealing his line from this afternoon, but I won't be here anyway, Pastor. So, but we are trying to see how much we can have an impact on our community and our region, even just beyond having the solar panels and the battery backup for when something happens, right? And I'm hoping that in building these programs, we can not only build them now, but make them sustainable so that they become ongoing programs that gets rolled over year after year after year. Because that's one of the things that we can see using the Vickers Community Center for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we'll only have time for one more question, and I'd like to direct it to you, Mayor Pro Tem. And this is probably of interest to the financiers in the room. In terms of energy savings, utilities, I understand that Vickers saves about, $6,000 a year? And you were asked that question in New York at the Rockefeller Foundation. So is that really a lot of money to put the time and energy into this program? So can you expound upon that?
And I would say a resounding yes. And the reason why I think it is, well, a couple of things. First of all, the $6,000 was measured based on 2022 numbers, how the building was being used in 2022. Now, what was happening just about 2022? We were coming out of a pandemic, right? So the energy used on that building was not really that much. So the measurement that was made was in 2022 dollars. So that's one. The other thing is, even though we are talking about just $6,000, it takes a little bit over $200 for us to feed about 300 to 400 families per week out of that building with a week of groceries. So take that $6,000 and divide it by 230, and you will see with that the amount of weeks we can then provide groceries for 300 to 400 people. You know, in our last session, in one of the sessions this morning, I heard a comment was made about even the very simple basic needs that some people in our communities have. And because of those needs, they're not able to take advantage of going and getting training and trying to improve themselves and their families. So I don't look at any savings, no matter how small, if it can be reinvested in our community to make our communities better, to make our people's lives better, it's all worth it. And by the way, that $6,000 also did not include the current level of use of the building and also the future use of the building, right? Because as we increase the activity and as we get these training programs up and going within that building, it's going to save us even more than the $6,000 per year.
Thank you. And one final question, and this is regarding O&M costs. What are the plans and strategies around making sure that the church, because in this case you own the solar project, are meeting the demands of O&M costs, program management costs going forward?
One of the suggestions that, if I'm understanding your question, one of the suggestions that we have made is to take some of that savings as much as we can and roll it into a special fund so that we can use that in the future if there's any repairs has to be done or any of that sort of stuff that comes. I mean, we know that this technology is solid. It's not going to go bad like a car like tomorrow, right? So we're going to roll some of that money into a special fund and keep it there for when we need it, just specific to that, as well as I said before, rolling some of that money back into some programs.
Okay, thank you. Okay, join me in thanking our mayors and Mayor Pro Tem this afternoon.